I'll kick off. I think we might get a few people joining us as we go, but timing for these things is always a little bit tight, so I'll kick off as we start. So the first thing to do is just a very big warm welcome to you all. It's so fabulous to see you here tonight, and it's just great that you've been able to join us. I'd like to extend a particular welcome to Professor Hazel Reid, who's here to do the keynote speech tonight. So Hazel, it's just brilliant to have you here. And then obviously the stars of the show are our shortlisted candidates for the Bill Law Award. So just trying to make sure I get you all: Helen, Emma, Fran, Leslie, Syra, Darren and Angela. Thank you very much for applying. Thank you very much for having such amazing bits of research to share with us, and thank you for being here tonight. So my name is Julia Yates. I'm one of the NICEC Fellows, and it's been my great pleasure to be in charge of the Bill Law Award this year. It's been absolutely brilliant reading all of your assignments and kind of working with you a little bit on them. Can I also give a big shout out to my fellow judges? So that's Michelle, Janet and Rosemary, who are all here tonight. So it's great. It's been great working with you, and thank you for your patience and tolerance as we've kind of muddled through. So this award is all really to celebrate and honour the mighty Bill Law. Bill Law was everybody's favourite career academic. He wrote just huge numbers of amazing, influential papers. He had just an astonishing number of brilliant ideas. I always feel every time in my career, you know, there've been a few moments where I thought, I've had a brilliant new innovative idea. And every time I've had a look at the literature and it turns out that Bill had already thought about it way better than I had, and he'd written about it, and he'd all done it decades ago. So Bill was just absolutely amazing. And he died in 2017. He was one of the two sort of founding fathers of NICEC, and we just wanted to find a way to kind of honour him really and honour his work. And we thought that doing this kind of award would very much be something he would approve of. He was very keen on education, he was very keen on research and on students, and I think he would have loved this. So we're really pleased to be able to kind of remember him, I guess, every year with this. And I think he would have been absolutely delighted to read your entries this year. I think he would have very much enjoyed them all. He'd have given you incredibly insightful feedback, and he'd have taken your thoughts in directions that you wouldn't imagine. So I'm sorry he wasn't actually able to be here and be part of the judging panel, but I think he'd have loved it. So we certainly enjoyed ourselves this year. We had a bumper crop of students putting their assignments forward, and we've got 8 of you shortlisted. And, you know, I've got to say, each one of you was absolutely brilliant. And we do feel that we've given you quite a tall order this year, well, every year. So taking a sort of master's dissertation and reducing it to just a few thousand words, yeah, I've got some nods around the room. That's a really challenging thing to do. And then tonight we've pushed you one step further, and we're asking you tonight to condense your master's dissertations into 3 minutes and one single slide. And that's a really tough thing to do. So we really appreciate it. I, of course, have read all your articles, and I've looked at all of your slides, and they're all brilliant. And I know you're in for a treat. But talking of treats, and before we get to the 3-minute theses, we want to hear from Hazel. So Professor Hazel Reid has come to do our keynote speech tonight, and I can't tell you what a coup it is that we managed to persuade her to come along. So Hazel was a NICEC Fellow for many years, but retired a few years ago, and she crops up here and there, don't you, Hazel? You haven't gone completely from the careers world, but she doesn't do very much speaking anymore. So I've got to say that we were, I think, perhaps a little bit surprised, but utterly delighted when Hazel said that she was happy to come along and do the talk tonight. I think we must have caught her at a weak moment, but I think as well as that, Hazel just has always been very passionate about education and about careers guidance and about research. And I think she was very, very fond of Bill. So I think that all combined to be an offer that thankfully she didn't feel she wanted to refuse. So I won't introduce Hazel any more than that, because what we've asked Hazel to talk about tonight is her career. So I don't want to kind of give any of the snippets away. We've asked Hazel to talk a little bit about some of the things she's done in her career, and perhaps think a bit about some lessons learned and maybe some words of wisdom to pass on to those in the audience. So I think probably, Hazel, I'll just hand over to you now, if that's all right, and let you talk to us about your life and the transitions.
Sitting comfortably. Well, first of all, thank you, Julia and colleagues, for asking me to ramble on for half an hour for this very important award, which is in honour of Bill's work. As we all know, Bill was a real inspiration, I think, as Julia's already said, to many of us in the careers education and guidance community. And also, this is a very important evening for the research students, and use the word students in inverted commas, but for the research students here who've taken the plunge and with courage have submitted their work for this evening's event. So congratulations to you, all of you. So I was invited to, as Julia indicated, to talk a little bit about my own career life story, which is, as I think I said to Julia, is all very flattering, but sounds a bit self-indulgent. However, a little light narcissism never did anybody any harm. Don't go too far, I think. So there will be some of that, but not too much, I hope. So I've called it a career life story, and it's all about transition. And I want to say at this point, I retired in 2018. So this is very theory light. I'm following the brief I was given, but hopefully it'll be interesting enough to keep you vaguely amused for up to half an hour, let's say. Looking at the first bullet point there, I just want to get rid of that because it's in my way. That's better. So I looked at what Bill said when he was describing the essence, or the elements, if you like, of story making. And in the NICEC journal in 2017, when he talked about narrative, he said the distinctive features of stories are people, places, events, meaning. So that's the sort of tack I'm going to take for this talk this evening. I'm thinking about my own career life story. That's one of the things that give me a kind of framework for it, if you like. So there will be a little autobiographical background, but I do want to focus on the people that have been important to me in terms of that career and the opportunities that have popped up along the way. But I'm also going to reflect a little bit on the risks involved. I put risks in scare quotes because first and foremost, I'm a sociologist. I can't do anything without putting it in scare quotes. But I also want to reflect on the importance of working alongside others. And that is students, colleagues, practitioners, researchers, academics, and of course, the support of family, without which all of the things that I have managed to do would have been very, very difficult. So, and I'm going to end, as Julia suggested, with some possible insights for developing a career in research within our sector. So if you can see that, as some of you know, I left school at 15. So I'm going to trot through these bullet points here before I end up in Canterbury Christ Church University. So at 15, I decided I didn't want to stay at school anymore. So the youth employment officer came along and said, well, Hazel, what would you like to do? Would you like to be a GPO telephonist or work in Boots the chemist? And I paused for thought, and she said, come on, make your mind up. So I said, okay, then I'll be a GPO telephonist, which is what I did. And can you all see the picture there? I hope so. Yeah. Well, that's not the Esher telephone exchange and Claygate, but it's very much like it. So it kind of resonates with me. So I trained, and the exchanges that we looked after were Ashton, Byfleet, Chertsey, Cobham, Esher, Headley, Longcross and Ottershaw, Sunbury, Walton and Weybridge. And Headley, Longcross and Ottershaw still had press button A, press button B call boxes. So that was a very long time ago, but I won't say when. So one of the good things about being a GPO telephonist way back then was that they thought all these young girls, and they were young girls, really hadn't had enough education. So they sent us off to further education college at Kingston one day a week. I can't have any memory at all about what we did in the morning, but in the afternoon we did sporty things. So we did dry ski runs and ice skating at Richmond Ice Rink, no longer there, which actually became a hobby of mine. But I must have done something vaguely academic, because I remember I got a prize. So I had a feeling it was English literature. However, what it did teach me, what I did learn from it, was that maybe GCEs and A-levels might be quite a good idea. So I did a clutch at night school. At the same time, I decided that I didn't want to be a GPO telephonist anymore, so I went to work at Boots the Chemist. So you could say that guidance interview was actually spot on. So I stayed at Boots for some time. I became a head of department at quite a large branch in Kingston-on-Thames, as it happens, and met my husband and started a family. And then, having completed the A-levels, did an OU degree in sociology. And the OU had some very good careers leaflets. And one of the things that was suggested for somebody with a degree in social sciences was actually careers advisor, which sounded great. I thought you'd get all the holidays off. Turns out that wasn't the case. But nonetheless, it fitted in well with my interests. And went off to do the what was then the diploma in career guidance at Swanley. There were actually 75 students on the course at that time, and that was just one centre. At the end of the course, it was what to do next. And it was a time, it would have been around 1992, maybe, when many students expected to go to Kent Career Service, as was, and Kent Career Service at the time went fairly up, I believe. So we were, looking what else to do. I did go to East Sussex Career Service, which was marvellous, but at the same time, thinking that I might not get a job straight away, I enrolled in a MA in the psychology guidance at the University of East London, which Jenny Binrose had just set up. So did the MA, and a little while later got a secondment to Swanley, which then became College of Guidance Studies. So part-time teaching and then full-time teaching on the then DIPSY-G. In the year 1999, which was quite seismic in lots of ways for the career service at that point, but also COGS, which was the smallest college in the higher education sector in the UK, had to close, and it was merged with Canterbury Christ Church University, which was great for us. And we became the Centre for Career and Personal Development based at the Salomons campus. Andrew Edwards, who was a NICEC Fellow at one point, Andrew was our leader at that point and supported me in my career then in terms of being a reader and later taking a doctorate. So I had a chair then in Education and Careers Management. I was head of research in the Faculty of Education, and my colleague Anne Chant took over CCPD. And then I retired in 2018. So there we are. So what along the way then were the opportunities and risks? Well, when teaching on the DIPSY-G, there were opportunities to write. So there was NICEC, if people remember NICEC, Career Guidance Today, which was the then ICG magazine, and College Guidance Studies. We produced these occasional papers, which were started by Barry Irvin, who worked for a time, and people will know him from sort of international conferences and so on. And Barry really was very important in developing his colleagues who wanted to take up writing and research. Along came also a number of ICG and CDI, of course, conferences, and I became interested in writing around the various issues that were going on at the time. So if we think about the late 90s and the early 2000s, when the career service in the UK was, to refocus itself, very much so. So there was lots of stuff around before Connections and then Connections itself. So then, with support and encouragement, I then submitted papers for the International Journal of Vocational Alphabet Soup, Education and Guidance, and the British Journal of Guidance and Counselling. So this is where it begins to get a bit risky. You know, you think, shall I do this, or should I just keep it myself, you know, and mutter with my chums, but not actually try and put myself out there. So that's always a bit risky. And what are those felt risks when we start doing that? So, like maybe some of our colleagues this evening, thinking, you know, when is she going to get my bit over with? And so there's a risk when we do stuff like that. When we submit to, and it sounds scary, just reading it out, actually, international peer-reviewed journals. What can happen? Well, you could be you might have picked the wrong journal. You may have picked a journal that's not quite interested in your subject. So you're careful about where you pick a journal. And it's a good idea anyway, if you're building a reputation in a particular sector, not to try and spread yourself too thinly. So that could be a bit humiliating. You could feel a bit small if someone says no, thanks, you know. So, and it can be embarrassing as well because you thought you could do this. So we've all gone, you know, people that have published, we've all gone through those stages and hopefully come out the other side. But also then there was an opportunity to present at international conferences of the IAEVG, International Association of Educational and Vocational Guidance. And I think one of the first ones I did was actually in New Zealand, because COGS at the time had a distance learning course and it might have been of interest. So we were, I think it was Barry and I were actually sponsored to go there. And it was actually the first time I met Tony Watts there. But then later there were other conferences, NICEC conferences themselves. So early conferences, or early for me anyway, cracked NICEC conference. And there was one in Leicester, which was very important for me because, well, I met Bill there for a start, which was great. But also I met Mark Savikas, Audrey Collin. So these were people that were real stars, if you like, in terms of our world. And they were very generous with their time. And certainly after Leicester with Mark, I thought this is very character stuff. That's very interesting, but how to do it. And I got a great wad of stuff arrived in the post in the day when we posted things through a letterbox. So also other education and narrative conferences outside of careers education and guidance, but alongside the work that I was doing at the university. So people, places, talk, events, all important things. So thinking about this some more, you put your head above the parapet. And I thought this is nicely summed up by Dr. Seuss in a book called The Places You'll Go. So you'll come to a place where the streets are not marked. Some windows are lighted, but mostly they're dark. A place you could sprain both your elbow and chin. Do you dare to stay out? Do you dare to go in? How much can you lose? How much can you win? And it's a lovely thing. He wrote it for students, graduation students in the States. But if you come across the whole book, it's really great. And of course, it's about those sort of transitions and when we put ourselves up there. So taking the opportunities then. So a number of opportunities did arise over the years. Certainly supporting practitioners on the NVQ route in east of England, Kent, somewhere else that I can't see on the screen. But that was important because I had some colleagues who didn't want to be involved in NVQ. I think it was for them. But we got those of us that were involved. We got to go different places in the UK and worked with a lot of practitioners who at that stage, at the beginning of connections, etc., were doing an NVQ but needed some academic support. So that was good fun. Also working with education officers in the British Army on a tailored guidance, both in the UK and in Cyprus. I mean, I could do half an hour on that. I won't. Many interesting opportunities, lots of developmental occasions there. But also developing courses and programs with practitioners, and we ran biennial conferences and publications at the Centre for Career and Personal Development at Canterbury. So these were all opportunities that were available, and can be quite scary, but like many colleagues saw earlier, we've all done this type of thing. And engaging in professional issues at the time of the refocusing agenda of the career service, remember that? So personal advisors and connections. But then I thought it was time to do some proper research, if you like. So support and supervision for careers advisors who became personal advisors at that point and weren't allowed to call themselves careers advisors seemed to be a good area to look at, alongside the interest in narrative work. So all of this, of course, is when we put ourselves out there a bit and do this extra stuff and extra study, all of which is very challenging in terms of the energy and the time, alongside the the day job, the training, supporting students at a different level in their own development, and colleagues at the university in their research development. But having said it was all quite challenging, a huge satisfaction, learning from others, great conferences in interesting places, and I know that was easier then perhaps than it is now in terms of funding. But being involved in amazing funded research projects with very inspiring international colleagues. So there were lots of opportunities there available. Enough about me. Along the way, what I wanted to talk about was the mentors, if you like, and those that inspire and enrich my own career life story. And these are kind of in, can't think what the word is, but in the order they happened. I might come up with the word later, but then again, I might not. So starting with the master's course. So Professor Jenny Bimrose, who started the MA when there was a lot going on in the career service, and so people like me who are coming out of COGS and not sure if there were actually going to be any jobs, the MA was a good place to go. So I worked with Jenny, first of all as a student on the MA in guidance that she created, and then later in the as was ICG, Institute for Careers Guidance, we worked on the publication which was called Constructing the Future. Jenny and I edited that together for some time. And then Bill, I think I saw Bill at an early conference, an early NICEC conference, the first time I met him. And then Bill sent me some of his work to have a look at. And I thought, oh, comment on Bill's work. So that felt rather wonderful. Actually, I realised Bill sent it to a lot of people. But it still felt rather wonderful. But Bill came to the College of Guidance Studies, Swanley, as was. And then it was actually Bill that suggested I might become a NICEC Fellow back in the day. So Bill's work was very inspiring. Tony, of course, the British Journal of Guidance and Counselling. Bill and Tony were both visiting lecturers, professors on courses at the Centre for Career and Personal Development at Canterbury. And then Ronald. Ronald in particular, I think because of the background in sociology, and I was a sociologist first of all, and his work on social justice was very important. And I was thinking about this today, I don't think I've ever written anything around career guidance, careers education and guidance that hasn't referred to Ronald at some point. For me, he's been a particular inspiration. Lyndon West, some of you will know from my institution as was, from Canterbury Christchurch, with Bill and Andrew Edwards, who was head of department, in the development around narrative work. So Lyndon, in terms of using narrative and auto/biographical work as a research methodology. Bill, of course, with all his work that developed into storyboarding and so on. And myself in terms of narrative guidance. So that was quite an important step for me. Peter Lavender, some of you might know, he was my supervisor on my doctorate in the OU. Why he was so important for me was the way he did his supervision, which I tried to model. So, you know, these are people that certainly inspired and enriched my work. Mark Savickas, of course, career construction theory. Mark, I met, I have a feeling I know it was a NICEC crack conference at Leicester. And I met Mark for the first time there. So how interesting I thought it was, and how so many of our colleagues share their work. A very large envelope arrived at College of Guidance Study with all this material from Mark, which was fantastic and very inspiring. Gideon Aramani from India, in terms of cultural awareness, cultural preparedness, Gideon became a particular inspiration. And I had the wonderful opportunity of going to India and teaching on his course. There are, of course, many other inspiring colleagues that are researching, writing and practicing in narrative career counselling in particular, but I feel I should move on. So, possible insights into developing a research career in career guidance and counselling. One of the things to say is that, you know, you are becoming the expert in your own research. Your research does matter. Examine what has surprised you in your findings. Be prepared to change your view. If you get detailed critical evaluation, it means the reader has engaged with your work. Find and nurture your critical friends. Identify who your theoretical friends are. And guidance counselling is all about asking good questions, I've always thought. Research provides insights and leads to more questions, and decide and identify on your own boundaries. So thinking about one of Bill's pieces that he wrote about holding on and letting go, he talked about the complexity in thinking about the development of a research career and the dynamics that are at work in social and cultural settings. And what he talks about is the willingness to be less sure of yourself when you're involving in research, and to be touched by the surprise, the confusion and the indecision about making new thinking possible. So we need to think about what to hold on to and what to let go. It's all about transition. So one of the things that I wanted to finish saying is that it's always been a pleasure to have this opportunity to talk with NICEC colleagues and to think about what's important in terms of your own research careers. I'm thinking about our colleagues that are tonight presenting. There are times when you think, do I really know what I'm talking about? Am I sure about what I'm saying? I think there are times when we think I need to put some boundaries about that, and that's all right and proper, of course. I'm just looking at our notes. So, you know, it's important to take the opportunities that are out there and to think about what we can talk about and where we want to draw the lines around our work. So we work in a very interesting field. I'm now retired from the field, of course, but we work in an interesting field where the possibilities of moving into new areas are really great. And we're going to hear shortly from our colleagues this evening who probably want me to be quiet so that they can get on with their presentations. So I want to thank you for this opportunity to say a little something before our colleagues take over from this point. So there's Bill. we remember him tonight, of course, in the presentation that we're going to hear. And it's always great to think back of a lifetime in careers work that Bill was often a leader, and certainly a leader into new thinking. So thank you, Bill, and thank you, Julia. Stop sharing.
Oh, Hazel, because we're on Zoom, you can't hear the rapturous applause, but believe me, it's all now this year. And there we go. I can do a little yellow clap for you. Hazel, that was just tremendous. I mean, we knew it was going to be great, but it was just so fantastic to hear you talking about all the different amazing things that you've done, and also about your just sort of your attitude towards it. And you're really kind of embodying lots of the career theories there, aren't you? That idea of planned happenstance, that the opportunities are there, but you need the right mindset to see them and to take advantage of them. And I certainly think that message about taking risks is one that really struck home to me, that actually these things are difficult, and you do risk that humiliation or rejection or embarrassment. But you know, we all know this, don't we? That if you don't take the risk, you're never going to get there. And I loved your quoting of Dr. Seuss. That was also absolutely amazing. So thank you so much. So we do have a little bit of time. I bet there are some comments and questions. You know, the NICEC community is never backward in coming forward when it comes to questions and comments. So is there anybody that would like to ask Hazel or make a comment about Hazel's session? Over to you. Yes, you can raise your hand, you know, with the reactions at the bottom. Jane, thank you. Oh, you're on mute at the moment. There we go. Perfect.
Hi, Hazel. It's lovely to see you again. Fantastic to see you and hear your thoughts about your journey. It's been really interesting. I'd just like to ask you a daft question, really. With the benefit of hindsight, now you've had some time to reflect on it all, is there anything you'd do differently?
Great question.
Or not?
Well, that's interesting. I don't think so. No, not.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll do anything differently. I mean, I may have been a bit foolish in a way, because if an opportunity arose, I normally took it. I don't think I was too frightened of taking opportunities, but then I would always work very hard at preparation, so that if I did take something on, I felt that by the time it actually happened, I was probably in a good place to do the work. Interesting question, Jane.
Yeah, great answer. Thank you.
That's a really lovely thought, Hazel, isn't it? That it's not just about sort of randomly careering and saying yes to everything. It's about saying yes to things, but then putting your money where your mouth is, isn't it? Saying yes, but then making sure that you don't let people down, and you don't let yourself down, and that you really put yourself forward. Yes,
I mean, I suppose when you're involved in research, you get to a point where people begin to know about your work, and you get invited on the basis of something that you've done. So you have a bit of a foundation there in the first place, I think. I mean, there have been a couple of times when I've said, well, no, actually, I don't think I'm the right person for that. So I wouldn't say yes to everything. That would be foolish, I think. And I suppose it's about also knowing where you can go to seek help. So people like Bill, for example, would have been a great help. People like Tony. I mean, Tony worked on the very first Erasmus project that I was involved in.
Right.
And I would have, if I could have walked away from that project at some point, I would have done, because it was challenging in a not very nice way. But actually having Tony there, I don't know, he may not have even been aware of it, but to have Tony's backing at that point was great. So yes, who your friends are.
Yeah, quite. Laura.
Hi Hazel, thank you very much. That was really inspiring. I was struck by what you said about narrative, and I was wondering during the course of your long career about what you noticed about the changing and evolving narrative around careers during that time.
Around careers itself, I mean, it changed a great deal. So I trained, when did I train? I can't remember. 1990, 1991. There will be other people that have, you know, and beat me, no doubt. So, I mean, a lot has changed in terms of the narrative itself of career guidance and counselling. But that would be true in any profession. So it's not something that's specific to our world, to the careers world. In terms of narrative career counselling, that was something that I found absolutely fascinating. And it would have been the conference that I mentioned, actually, the NICEC Crack conference in Leicester, when I heard Mark Savickas for the first time. I thought, this is really great. And one of the great things I think about our profession is that people are willing to share. There must be competition there, but I've never felt that there was a lot of competition between academics in the sense that people didn't want to share the work that they did. So I felt very supported over the years in doing things different and doing things differently sometimes from colleagues, from people that were my line managers, from professional institutes, etc. So I've actually now forgotten what your question was.
Great answer, though.
You answered it. Yeah, it's about the evolving narrative. It's great. Thank you.
Yes.
Go on, Michelle. This is, oh no, we've got Michelle and Claire, and then we can move on after that. So Michelle, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I loved, I mean, I owe a lot to Hazel when they closed the programme at LSBU. She took me in as a homeless academic and gave me some wonderful opportunities to develop myself and move on. And I've always loved your writing because it's so clear and succinct. I particularly liked your reference to Dr. Seuss, and another of his works that has inspired me is Who Are You, Sue Snow? Now, Sue that you are older than 2, it's time for you to choose something to do. So thank you for that reference to the book that he wrote as well.
That's
thank you for
Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle. Nice to see you.
Claire.
Got your mic on off, Claire.
Yes.
Apologies. Michelle's beautifully brought that full circle by showing Hazel's mentoring role, but you said how important that was to you, Hazel, and it struck me in the sector that quite a few people work in isolation, don't they, now, with career leaders in schools and people who are self-employed as careers advisors. And it seems to me imperative that NICEC and CDI and other networks really take on that role of professional mentoring to do that process that you've just been through with us of sharing stories and sharing insights and just trying to get stronger professional connections. So I just loved the way you said how important that was, and then for Michelle to show how you'd played that role with her. But feels to me so important. I just wondered if you had any comments on how we keep the fires burning on that, really.
Yes. Well, I retired in 2018, I think, and so I'm conscious that I don't know now about our world in the same way as I used to. I mean, obviously, organisations like NICEC are very important. The CDI is very important. The EVG. All of these organisations are important, but it becomes increasingly difficult for our colleagues to participate in these areas and to go to conferences. I was very fortunate to be able to, I was very fortunate to have Andrew Edwards actually as my line manager at CCPD, because Andrew... The train at platform 3 is the 7 sorry, because Andrew built CCPD. I mean, I took over from him, but he built CCPD, and there were lots of opportunities to do different things. And some of those opportunities, you know, are not there now. So I'm very conscious of that. But yes, I feel I was very fortunate. But organisations, of course, like NICEC, to have these sorts of events. And we're so now used to doing stuff online, which makes it more easy for people to participate. Not sure I've answered your question, Claire.
No, you have. Thank you.
Right, thanks again, Hazel. That was just fantastic. And when we finish, Hazel, you must have a little scroll through the comments in the chat, because there are lots of kind of marvelous things that people have said about you in your session. So thank you very, very much. But now let's move on to, it will astonish you, but that wasn't even the main event. The main event is our 3-minute theses from our Bill Law award applicants this year. So these poor students have had to condense their MSCs into just a mere 3 minutes and 1 slide. And I'm going to try and be quite ruthless to keep to time. So I've got them all together in a single slide deck that I'm going to share. And with any luck, this will work. So can people see that? Have I managed to share? No, I haven't, have I? Is that because I'm not the host? Hazel, can you make me host?
No, you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, all right. I'll try again. Michael's just being very calm. There we go. Is that better? Okay.
That's perfect.
Fantastic. So there we go. There's a little picture of Bill in the corner. I just thought he should be here himself. And first up, we've got Syra. Are you there, Syra?
Hello, Julia, can you hear me?
I can hear you beautifully. I can't actually see you at the moment. Is your cat? Oh, there you are. You popped up. That's brilliant. So this is your slide, I think. And
that's my slide.
Ready, please fire away.
Great, thank you, Julia. Thanks, Hazel, as well. Really enjoyed listening to you. So hello, everyone. Really excited to share my research with you. So 3 minutes, here we go. So this dissertation research was really born from a really strong interest in careers and how they develop over time. So during my career coaching work, when people transitioned or wanted to transition careers, I was seeing a lot of similar themes in what people wanted out of work, how they wanted to change, how they did work, and what that meant in their career journey. So this dissertation, I was really lucky enough to explore more of that and more of these narratives. And then I used all of that to develop this model of protein career change. So in a nutshell, my dissertation explores the protein career, and that's the values-based and self-directed career, which is very much increasing in prevalence today. And it's explored by understanding how individuals tell and construct stories when they move away from the traditional organizational setting to these protein paths. And there is actually, little academic insight into people's motivations for doing so. So a lot of the research focuses on quantitative aspects of the protein career, or protein career that's built inside the organization. So things happening outside of the organizations when people move away from organizations to other career paths, that's not explored in a lot of detail. And one thing I found was that the stories that people were telling were actually strikingly similar. They were telling stories of a journey, an adventure, things that had changed them. They were talking about change and bravery and transformations that they had undergone. And there was this real sense of this journey happening. And as I started to research, I realized that this model, so this hero's journey model, was really applicable. The hero's journey is popularized by Campbell in 1949. It takes its roots from analytical psychology, and it's been used, and you might have seen it before, it's been used to compare religions in popular literature and TV. And also, interestingly, it's also been researched academically from a therapeutic perspective. but there's little to do with change. So it's not been analysed academically from a career change perspective. And I was able to do that in this dissertation. So protein career changes really made sense of their career change journey by touching on several aspects of this model. So if we look at it, there's a separation phase, and that separation stage indicates a real sort of growing awareness that something's not quite right. And then there's this trigger, this big moment in a scene or a movie that people remember actually really, really vividly. And many people can actually pinpoint that exact moment when they said, actually, this is enough. And they really do paint that picture. And then you have the moment of initiation. So this is when people have, some of those roadblocks and they stumble a little bit. They're not entirely sure if they're on that right path. And then you have the return, the transformation. So these heroes, then they're changed, often for the better. They've learned all these lessons and they've reached a point where they can look back and understand what's come from this change and what's come from this journey. And so, yeah, that's the model. And one of the key ways that I propose that this tool can be used is as a coaching tool to ease transition for protein career changes. So I designed a number of questions around these 3 phases. And so I was thinking that a career coach or advisor might be able to use this framework to help navigate career change. And it's also a model that could be used to understand change more generally. It actually shows quite a lot of similarities to other models of change.
I'm so sorry, Sarah, but I'm just going to have to cut you off because we could listen to you talk about this forever. And it was so interesting and so incredibly innovative, I think, to come up with your own model as part of your dissertation. So thank you very, very much for that.
No problem. I was coming to the end anyway. Right,
next up we've got Leslie Graben. Are you there?
I am, Julie, I'm here.
Fantastic. Now again, I can't see you. Can I get you to put is your camera on?
My camera is on, yep.
For some reason you're not coming up in my little thing, but I'm sure you're there.
I can see her.
Oh, there we go, fantastic. As long as there I can see you now. Right, as soon as you're ready, have I got the right slide up for you?
Yes, no, that's perfect. No, thank you very much. It's lovely to be here, and yeah, thank you for the opportunity to share my research. So the gathering and use of data in higher education, as we know, has very much exploded over the last few years, and it's now absolutely central to the entire student journey. And my research looked at how this datafication has impacted the role and the work of career services and how they have and are responding. So I took a kind of qualitative approach with 5 semi-structured interviews with heads of career services, and then I adopted a reflective thematic analysis. And what I want to do in this limited time is to focus on the findings and their potential implications. So 4 key themes were identified. So the first one was pushed into the light. So this focuses on the changing position of career services from a real bolt-on to an integral part of a university's offer. And my interviewees described how their services are now viewed as central to enhancing institutional levels of student engagement and satisfaction. And the tension for career services really in navigating through this landscape and balancing that institutional expectation with supporting and realising the goals of individual students was very much a repeated theme. Secondly, taking back the narrative. This describes the response of career services to being pushed into the light and the proactive approaches that they have adopted using data and its insights to influence the sort of the strategic and the operational delivery of careers and employability activity in their institutions. Some of these interviewees were able to argue for additional staff and resource to promote the centrality and shared responsibility of employability and to influence the content of university policy and approach. The third theme was pulled into shape, and this illustrates how the current focus on outcomes and measures has influenced and changed the shape, priorities and focus of career service delivery. The availability of data on areas such as engagement with the career service, levels of student career readiness and student demographic data is enabling career services to become more proactive in who they target and where they prioritise. What came through the interviews was the complexities in deciding who and what to prioritise, and how do you determine need. This is questioning long-held approaches to delivery methods, and there is a move away from a blanket approach and towards engaging students as individuals. Finally, keeping pace with the data. Interviewees highlighted the challenges and the vast quantity of data that now exists, the quality of data sets, and also the importance of having the skills within teams to interpret, analyse, and effectively to use the data. The growing necessity of having data professionals in career service teams and the importance of leadership and investment to make this happen was a clear theme. So in conclusion, really being able to illustrate, to use data, being able to illustrate using data, the student needs, but also the engagement and impact of these interventions gives career services an enhanced reputation and a louder voice to influence institutional strategy. This is not always a comfortable place. Being pushed into light brings many advantages, but brings fewer choices and possibly less independence. The increasingly sophisticated use of data can, in part, support career services to shape the narrative on careers and employability in their institutions, rather than being shaped entirely by it.
Leslie, thank you very much. That was fantastic, brilliant, and such an important, such a topical subject, I think, at the moment. That's of such relevance to people working in that kind of context. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, Angela, you're up next.
Okay.
We were having a little bit of trouble with your microphone earlier, but are you there? Can we hear you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Right.
Ready
yes,
to
I
go?
can hear you perfectly. So as soon as you're ready to go, please kick off.
Okay, hello everyone and welcome to my 3-minute thesis. I choose this research topic because the world is currently witnessing the largest displacement of refugees in modern history, and many of them are young people about to embark on a career. As advisors, we need to understand their unique circumstances if we are to offer appropriate support. I based my research in Scotland because the New Scots integration policy diverges from Westminster and is more favourable to refugees. Additionally, Skills Development Scotland provides a dedicated career service not offered in the rest of the UK. There is no literature exploring these factors, so I hoped my study would help fill the gap. Semi-structured interviews were conducted with 9 participants, 5 young refugees and 4 stakeholder organisations. Research questions focused on what hinders and what helps access to relevant post-secondary education. Results showed that barriers are similar to those documented internationally, but some supports are unique to Scotland. I found young refugees are not academically ready to transition to higher education. Written English is problematic, and DSOL is not preparation for university, limiting study to further education colleges. There is inadequate provision for maths, restricting access to STEM subjects. A huge barrier is immigration status. Many young refugees do not have indefinite leave to remain, creating uncertainty around career planning. In terms of support, what stood out was the number of pathways on offer. The state and voluntary sectors cooperated to raise awareness of these opportunities to the refugee participants. What made the biggest difference, however, was that the information provided was bespoke. Someone from SDS or the guardianship program was saying to individual refugees, "We will help you apply for this course." In addition, they advocated for them with colleges and universities. I need to mention here that this was a very small urban-based study, and this level of support may not be reflective of what is available across the country. More research is needed to get the bigger picture. That said, there are some things I learned that have implications for practice. One of the biggest barriers young refugees face is what Lambrish categorizes as newcomer factors. Social and cultural capital gets lost, making refugees vulnerable to misinformation. Careers advisors could counter this by helping individuals navigate the higher education system and engaging with universities to extend outreach. They can also proactively work with other stakeholders so that refugees have access to the full range of services available. At governmental level, advisors could lobby for differentiated maths language provision and draw attention to the maths gap. To conclude, If the goal is to offer socially just guidance, advisors need to be aware of the specific needs of young refugees and be willing to advocate for their right to the relevant education. And I hope this very brief presentation provided some context of how this looks in practice.
Oh, Angela, another fantastic one. Thank you very much. Such an important subject. And one of the great values of this kind of research is about giving a voice to people, isn't it? And you've really done that, given a voice to people who don't have a voice. So that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Right, who we got next? Darren, are you there?
I'm here.
Fantastic. Whenever you're ready, please get going.
Cool. Right, let's go back to the catalyst for my research. My previous role as head of careers in a secondary school really crystallised for me the significant impact teachers can have on a student's career awareness. They not only influence academic and personal growth, but are also, as trusted adults, uniquely positioned to shape career ideas. Furthermore, without the support of teachers, schools have no chance of meeting their statutory obligations to integrate career-related learning within subject curricula. However, when engaging with teachers regarding their role as career influencers, I encountered a wide range of differing attitudes. Some saw themselves purely as subject teachers, and careers were solely my responsibility. Others were already embracing this role and wherever possible incorporating career links within their teaching. These interactions helped me identify teachers who were positive about their role in career education and whose pedagogic expertise and support I could draw on in the collaborative development of their schemes of work to embed career-related learning within them. To my regret, I never took the opportunity to explore the reasons behind the differing attitudes expressed by teachers about their role as frontline providers of career education. So when the opportunity arose to conduct some research, I really wanted to explore what was behind these differing attitudes. Was it personal experiences of career guidance? Was it policy, such as, and apologies for the dirty word here, Gove's 2011 Education Act? Was it organisational culture, or was it something else? The data gathered during the subsequent semi-structured interviews identified 5 key themes that affected teachers' engagement with career-related learning. I won't explore these now as they were covered in the paper. However, what was clear was that teachers needed support to fulfil their key role as agents of change in the development of their students' career awareness. This level of support can only be put in place through effective new policies and greater collaboration between teachers and the careers profession. I will finish by expanding upon my key recommendation that teacher training must include relevant training on careers. Bill Law himself acknowledged the challenges of incorporating this, describing it as non-urgent amongst the many challenges trainee faces. However, if teachers aren't adequately engaged, prepared, or supported for their role in careers education, the continuous cycle of patchy delivery within the curriculum will never be broken, and the structural inequalities within the education system that fail to fully support the development of every individual will remain. In conclusion, teacher training simply must have a focus on developing a teacher's knowledge of careers. However, such a radical change must not be mandated, but developed collaboratively with the teaching profession, thereby increasing the chances of its acceptance and its implementation. Thank you all for listening.
Darren, that was brilliant. Thank you very much. And within time, which is brilliant. But I also love you're addressing here an issue that we've been sort of going around houses with this for a long time, haven't we? But I think you're coming at it from a new angle, which is exactly what innovative research is all about. So thank you very much. Right, next up, I've got Emma. Are you around, Emma?
Yes, I am. I've got my timer ready.
Whenever you're ready, please get started.
Super, thank you. Okay, so I know you're not meant to have a favourite group of students to work with, but I do. And I love working with the arts, English and language students. So I graduated from that school, I graduated from university, I'm their careers consultant. So the results came through in 2020 to say that only 5% of these students had secured a graduate job. I was like, what is going on? I started looking at the detail, and it turns out the opinion, satisfaction and the awareness of career service had also gone down. And I was like, excuse me, what do I have to do here? So barring buying a dinosaur suit and riding around campus on a bicycle to get their attention, I was like, we need to figure this out. I did 12 semi-structured interviews with final year students. They'd done an optional work placement module, didn't have to do it. And I was getting them at the end of 3 years of Queen's, but they were just about to hit the real world. And I wanted to see what was going on. I was particularly interested in Patton and McMahon's systems theory framework. So what are the influences on these guys? How did they get there and where do they plan to go? So what did the students have to say? Well, quite a lot, actually. How do they make career decisions? Exactly what Darren just said. We cannot underestimate the value of the influence of pre-university guidance. And some of these students have brilliant guidance and some had horrendous guidance. They had a huge range in horizons for action. So some of these students knew specifically where they wanted to go and some were quite broad. For some of them, university was the goal. They were just excited to be at university and hadn't thought about the outside world yet. For others, there was disappointment that this was not the missing piece of the puzzle. They thought coming to university would solve everything, and they really didn't. What I did find was that they saw their identity through their subject. Not one student referred to themselves as a Queen's student. They were a drama student or a film student or a music student. They really saw themselves as part of the cultural resistance movement. And they were like, we're not accountants. I'm like, don't tell the accountants that. But they were so excited that they had all these different options. So who did these guys listen to? Who were their influencers? Well, clearly not me. They listened to their academics, their family who were already doing the job, their peers, their academic tribe. These were the people who had the real influences that were going to have to get through to this. So how did they measure success? They really want to use their skills from their degree in their jobs. Their job title was really important. What wasn't important was the length of time it took them to get there. So measuring them 15 months out was not really going to give you an accurate idea of what was going on. Money wasn't as big stressor or factor either. They were just like, I want to use my skills. They really did see themselves being persistent, flexible, and very brave. They saw barriers like confidence. They didn't, their imposter syndrome, time, geography. We're a regional university. They thought they had to go to London, but also the hard skills. The perceptions of art students have not got any better since I graduated. So how do we better support these students? Recognize their bespoke needs, recognize that we have to collaborate with academics. We need to get skills in level 1 in a system and a format that they recognize that they're getting career skills. They've had them throughout school. They're expecting them again in university. They need to get relevant work experience, and we need to start working with employers. And I've got 10 seconds left, so I can tell you that that's my current piece of research, is to get back to first year to see how we can figure this out.
Oh, Emma, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. Those students are so lucky to have you on their team. But I love the way you're just kind of embodying like the scientist practitioner there, aren't you? You're a practitioner solving real world problems with research, which is exactly what we should be about. So thank you.
Very frustrated.
Yeah, well, quite. I can see. Right, Fran, are you there? You're up next.
I am, and thank you, Emma. I am going to flow on, I hope, very nicely after yours, because I'm jumping at everything you just said. So thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to go click on the stopwatch now. So my name's Fran. I work in higher education in placements, and anyone that knows about industry placements know they're widely recognised as being a key driver in offering graduates a head start into their future career. Research demonstrates a ton of positive results for both the students and the wider economy. Students get that opportunity to put all this theory, all this study through school and college and university into the world of work. They get to have a feeling of, what is this going to feel like when I study this in the real world? What kind of job can I do? They meet people, they network, and they increase all those opportunities to get that graduate opportunity. But despite all these recognised benefits and this push for students to have to get this work experience during their study, data is suggesting a real decline in the number of students securing placements. And we've seen that in the area that we work over the last 5 or 6 years. The numbers have steadily dropped, which is such a shame. And we then correlated that with the fact that the number of students that come in through our doors to get all our pre-placement support and help, that steadily dropped as well. So we needed to know where they were. They come in the second year and they very quickly start to disappear off. So what is happening to them? So my research was to approach all those second years, those active second years, and find out, what are these barriers, who's influencing you, like we said before, and what are these barriers that you're facing. So through a combination of an online questionnaire and some one-to-one interviews, we had 50 students respond and give us a wealth of information, which is themed in what you can see on the screen there. So I won't go into all of those themes. The findings identified a number of themes that all interlinked. So mobility, geographical, financial implications. I can't move out of my local area. I can't afford to move out. My family needs me to stay nearby. There's no jobs in my local area. I need to go down to London to get a job. All of this was coming through. And then you can see how the themes started to interlink because the family influence was large. A lot of what we found was already in the existing literature, apart from a really interesting emerging theme, which was in the course industry in the field area. So basically, about, I think it was 50% I've got here of respondents cited that their subject area and what it looks like in the world of work were a barrier. So when we looked into that in a bit more detail, we had a lot of, I don't know what I want to do in IT. I think I want to work in this. I don't recognize the job title. I don't think I can do everything that's in the job description. I don't understand the job description. I don't think I fit doing that job. And it was all about how they saw themselves in this subject, doing this through education. They know they've loved this particular subject, but then the leap into doing it in the real world of work was frightening to them. And what was coming through resoundingly was students thinking that the decision they made for their placement would dictate their entire career. So that idea of scaffolding, they just didn't get. They thought everything was linear. So our job as practitioners was to take this wealth of research, sit down and go, we know we need some early intervention. We thought first year, but let's talk to Emma and Darren. We need to go right back so they actually understand. We can myth bust, if I can put my teeth in, and we can let them think about the kind of jobs they can do with that course. Don't identify themselves just as that course. You can do anything. I'm done. Did I do it? I didn't overload too much. I said
That's brilliant. And it's so interesting to see these common themes coming up, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Right. Brilliant. Thank you very
much.
So who have we got next? Helen. Are you around, Helen?
I am. Thank you, Julia.
Brilliant. Please go ahead as soon as you're ready.
So hello, everybody. The title of my submission was Words Escape Me. Imagine you're about to do a presentation. The subject of the presentation eludes you. Imagine the words escaping, the topics you regularly deliver, diluting, disappearing, swimming before your eyes. Imagine what it would be like to lose the very thing your livelihood depends upon. This is how one of my research participants described her cognitive menopause symptoms. I first became interested in the subject having read the Brewis report on menopause in the workplace. And I wondered how women in leadership positions with high work autonomy made sense of losing their cognitive functioning. And White's theory of sense making, together with an IPA approach, allowed me to explore the participants' experiences of cognitive menopause symptoms at work. 5 interrelated themes emerged, which you can see on the slide. A sense of loss pervaded the participants' language, and it went to the heart of sense making. Who am I? The language of burden around menopause was deeply embedded. There was evidence of systemic negative stereotypes, creating fear of being labeled and capability being questioned. As one said, you don't want to walk around with a big M on your forehead. Participants concealed their cognitive symptoms, attempting to conform to workplace norms, often feeling disarmed by intellectual fogginess and fearful of giving anyone ammunition. They questioned their value, they lost their confidence, felt isolated, and withdrew from opportunities. Underlying the decision to conceal symptoms lay an embedded stigmatization of being seen as a menopausal mess. Their sense-making was environmentally contingent, as participants spoke of hostile organizational cultures. Not only did participants feel patronized by younger women, perceived unsupportive male-dominated environments created disclosure barriers. The impact at work on career was such that speaking up in meetings felt risky and was coupled with feelings of incompetence. They worked longer hours to keep up with job demands to minimize perceived underperformance. However, attempts to conceal symptoms may have stopped managers offering support and impacted career goals. During the first year of menopause, all participants experienced a career transition to some degree. Although factors driving career transitions come from multiple directions, menopause may have been a catalyst for change, highlighting the importance of social construction in careers at a stage when women are often moving into senior positions. As career professionals, we have an opportunity to identify effective coping strategies to support our clients through the menopause transition as part of creating a gender inclusive and intergenerational workforce. Thank you.
Didn't need my orange book. Thank you very, very much. Fantastic. And that's another brilliant example there, Helen, of giving a voice to some people who don't usually have a voice. So that feels like such an important thing that research can do for us. So thank you very much. Right, so this is our last one, last but not in the least but least. Really happy that Leslie's around. Are you there, Leslie?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you for that introduction, Julia. So 3 minutes.
Yes.
My study focused on the group that's been almost entirely neglected in research, women in their 60s, ranging from 62 to 68, who are working with no plans to retire and are single. I was interested in the relationship between extended working and well-being for these women, in particular eudaimonic well-being. Eudaimonia, as you will remember, is the sense of well-being or happiness we get from using our potential and is closely related to growth, meaning and purpose. Some of the women in my study continue to find meaning in their primary career and enjoy sharing the knowledge and insights they've accumulated. Others have set up their own businesses, having retired at 60 from other work. Several women have put their own career development on hold at various stages in their lives, putting the needs of their families first. For women who feel they've not lived up to their potential, extended working can actually be seen as an opportunity. There is increasing discussion, possibly support around menopause in the workplace, much needed as we've been hearing. However, I was interested in post-menopausal identity. Coming to terms with this different you is an emotional process, and again, it's closely related to the desire for meaningful work. These women are likely to have been reflecting on what they want their next stage to look like for a long time. My findings suggest that the women who are continually pushing themselves out of their comfort zone and feel themselves to be learning, growing, and testing their limits are the most fulfilled and happy. This idea of moving forwards, of having goals and plans and giving direction and purpose to life was valued by all of the women in the study. 2 of the women in the research, however, had given up on work or study projects that were close to their hearts. They enjoy the work they do, but they spoke with regret about once cherished ambitions. The remorse they expressed was tangible, one talking in terms of devastation. This is the remorse or existential guilt of not being true to your potential. The women view the whole concept of retirement with suspicion. Work is regarded by the women as a way of staying elegant, engaged, and relevant. They mention retired friends who've lost confidence, believing they could no longer do things that they've always done, and they feared cognitive decline along with the loss of the social aspect of work. So eudaimonia has been linked to wisdom and mature self-acceptance, and those women who can elaborate a resilient best self, striving towards goals that reflect their unique potential and hold meaning to them, are also most likely to flourish in the eudaimonic sense, the sense of living what Aristotle called a good life. Thank you very much for listening.
Brilliant. Thank you, Leslie. What a lovely positive note to end on. Thank you very much. So, wow. That was amazing. It was so, I mean, you know that I've read your articles several times, but it was actually so fantastic to hear you talk about them. It really does bring them to life. And I really appreciate you doing all that and managing it all so quickly and so to time with such lovely slides. So I think we've probably just got a couple of minutes for questions. I looked up a moment ago and there are hundreds of messages in the chat. So people have obviously been sort of chatting away with each other whilst we've been talking. So there's obviously a lot of interest there. But are there any burning questions? We probably only got time for a couple, but it'd be lovely if anybody had any sort of comments or questions to add. Oh, just lots of lovely thanks going on in the chat there. Anything anybody would like to ask? Thank you, Rosemary. Oh, you're on mute. Oh, there we
Yeah,
go.
yeah. I was just curious how people had found the process of submitting their research.
Yeah.
Linking back to what Hazel was talking about, putting yourself out there, that fear of rejection, or all that. How how's it been? If this is the first time you've submitted your work, your very personal work, for this type of award, so I was just curious about that. If anyone wants to comment on that.
Oh, Emma, go on.
The worst thing they can say is no.
No, that's such a.
And then you move on.
I bet Hazel would support that.
I've had look. I could paper a wall with no's. It doesn't matter. If you don't try, you don't know.
Oh, that's totally right, isn't it? Anything from anyone else? Oh.
Yeah, I think for me, as Julia said earlier, shrinking about 14,000 words to 2.5 was quite brutal, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Especially when it's kind of your baby as well. Everything you've written is important. So I found that really difficult. And literally, the only way I could kind of come to terms with doing it was to go, I'm just going to focus on this one area and pay a little bit of lip service to the rest of it. So I kind of this evening wanted to talk a little bit more about the stuff that wasn't on the article rather than was. But yeah, that was painful. I think I spent 3 days trying to work out how to get my abstract down to 100 words.
Yes, it's quite. I think there can also be something really, really heartbreaking about not being able to give all of your participants the voice. You can't even do that within your dissertation, lots of words, but keeping it right down is so, you kind of feel that these people have such a lot to say and you really want to represent them, don't you? Yeah. Leslie, sorry, Darren, go on.
Just what I would add though, it was at the end of the process, whilst I didn't enjoy it, reflecting back on it, it was really rewarding doing it. So yeah, so reflecting back, it was enjoyable, but not at the time.
I'm just going to last word from you, Leslie, before we move on to Jill. Go on.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that actually it was very, very difficult removing the women's voices in my case, because there just wasn't space for it. No. And since I did IPA research, that was really important. Yeah. But it's fantastic discipline.
Yes,
and arduous.
yes, quite. Michelle's just put a comment in the chat there about publication, and that was something I wanted to say before I hand over to Jill to announce the award winners. We thought, you can see, everybody here can see what a tough choice we had to make. And actually, we thought you were all brilliant, and we thought your studies all could be published. So very happy to talk to you afterwards about, what might be the perfect publication for it. But we definitely felt they should all be out there. So we'd love to see them get to publication somewhere. But now, Jill, are you around? I can't see you on my screen at the moment. Oh, there you are.
I am indeed here, yes. What a treat we've had. Yeah, it's been really, really great to hear about this new research that's being done. Best bit of my job, my day job, is working with students who are doing their research projects. And I don't just have to say that because some of them are in the room tonight. But as chair of NICEC, this is a highlight of the year, definitely, to hear about this new research. And you've all done such a professional job of meeting the challenging brief that we've given you tonight. And personal thanks also to Hazel for her contribution this evening. Now, I don't have any envelopes with me, which is probably good because it means I'm not going to announce that La La Land are the winner. But I am going to announce the results of the NICEC jury. And what I'm going to do is announce those in reverse order. And I'm not going to necessarily put anybody on the spot and ask anyone to say anything, but we will do our little yellow hand round of applause. And then I'll hand back to Julia to handle the rest of the proceedings. I hope that's okay. So Julia tells me that the panel who considered all these entries really couldn't just decide on one winner and one highly commended entrant this year. So we have in fact got 3 highly commended entrants. I'm going to start with those. And the first of those is the fantastic work that we heard about from Angela Comer. looking at the refugees and asylum seekers' experiences in Scotland. It was brilliant, really well written submission. And as we've all been saying, Angela's work gave voice to a marginalised community, a really substantial piece of work. And the panel were really impressed with the way that Angela had brought nuance of the experiences of this particular group into the context, and it really enhanced understanding of the particular experiences that they'd spoken about. So very well done to Angela, highly commended. Some yellow hands going on, great, love it, well done. The second highly commended person is Sarah, with her research on the hero's journey. And as I think we've touched upon in immediate responses, it was the practical application of the work and the deep theoretical work, but also the emergence of a new model that was means that Sarah's produced something that's going to be genuinely useful for career changers and practitioners. So a delight to read, great integration of theory and practice. Well done.
Thank you so much.
And the last highly commended piece that we've got is Fran's work about the placement students, Fran Rimmer from Huddersfield, who's, as we've heard, been exploring the influence that affects students who have successfully secured industry placements. Great use of mixed methods to triangulate findings, engaging to read, very well written, very well situated within the literature. Clear recommendations for practice. So well done to you, Fran, as well.
Thank you.
So there's 3 highly commended, but there can only be 1 winner. And this person is going to get the prize of the £50 book token. Will definitely get their work published in the NICEC journal, although everyone's welcome to submit. And get their free NICEC membership for 1 year. And so this year's winner of the Bill Law Award is Helen Root, whose study with the brilliant title Words Escape Me, and a subtitle around the cognitive symptoms associated with menopause, and women's sense making of that in their workplace experiences. Original, contemporary, an understudied, under-researched area that isn't easy to talk about, even in such an open and inclusive and curious space as ours. So it's really, it was really poignant work to read about the sense of loss and fear that Helen's work evidenced from the women who participated. Well-written narrative, great recommendations for practice, a powerful ending. You did really well with the tight word count as well, Helen. So it met, really met the criteria: contemporary, original, situated clearly within the literature, strong sense of practical recommendations. It had everything. A very worthy winner.
Can I just say thank you?
Thank you. So you're very welcome, Helen. And we also have agreed recently, where NICEC's planning a conference for next July. The details will be coming out sort of towards the end of the summer. It's going to be a 2-day conference in Birmingham, and we'd be delighted to offer all the shortlisted entrants to the award this year a discount at the conference. We don't know what that is yet because we're still working on the details, but we really want to make sure that there's student voices in the conference, and so we'd be delighted if those of you who've presented tonight would consider coming to Birmingham and being part of that conference as well.
And perhaps present your work there as well, because we'd love to get it out there to our audience, which would be fantastic. So that's what I think we're all done, really. Just remains for a few thank yous. Thank you, Jill. A huge thank you to Hazel. That was perfect note. So thank you very, very much. That was a great pleasure. I thought it was worth doing a big thank you to all your student supervisors, because you obviously work very closely with your supervisors on your courses. And I know some of them are here tonight, and they all did a brilliant job supporting you. So a big thank you to that. The biggest thank you to the 8 of you who have done absolutely sterling work. I know it's a huge effort. Every single one of you was absolutely brilliant, and we really, really value your input. So that's the last comment. Michelle, you look like you've got a hand up there. Do you want to give the last word?
I don't wish to give the last word, but I do want to let those who've got the highly commended and the winner know that NICEC have had a logo designed that they can add to their emails. So I will be sending those out hopefully today or tomorrow.
So thank you all very much. Thank you all of you for joining us tonight. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your evenings. Thank you.